It's only been 7 weeks since Emirates GBR lifted the Season 5 trophy in Abu Dhabi, and we're already into the next round, as the 50th SailGP event marks the start of Season 6. And to kick things off, the event is in Freemantle, Western Australia, where the regular sea breeze, the Freemantle Doctor, comes and pays a visit at 20 knots every day. A welcome change for those looking for some more punchy action after a string of light weather events last season. But the conditions have already taken their toll in the build-up to this event. There were injuries and hair-raising moments during the practice racing as teams got used to the conditions and the still relatively new foils that went onto the boats last season.
And going forward, your wing. Hold. Holding, sitting a bit slowly.
But the big news in the build-up was the Spanish team, who suffered some serious damage to their foil boxes after a breezy jibe.
Hold everything.
In fact, so serious that the team was out before the event had even started, after it's decided that the problem couldn't be fixed in time. That took the listed teams down to 12 for this event. And this is how it played out. After bigging up Perth as the perfect venue for drama, it didn't take long to deliver on just that. But it wasn't the weather that was at the heart of the action. In fact, the breeze was a little down on expectations, with 12 to 15 knots and a sea state of just under 1 metre. This saw the fleet on their 24-metre wings, rather than the 18-metre ones that they'd been practising on earlier in the week. While under the water, it was the high-speed foils and rudders. A full throttle start saw the Australian Bond Flying Ruse lead at the first mark and hold this position at the first bottom gate rounding. Behind them there was drama as the port tack Kiwis misjudged a cross on the starboard tack Swiss, who had nowhere to go, resulting in a high-speed collision. A split second later, the Kiwis had lost the stern of their starboard hull, while the Swiss had damaged their port bow. Meanwhile, the Australians remained unchallenged throughout the race and cruised to victory. An impressive start, especially given the last-minute switch on wing trim, with Glenn Ashby replacing Ian Jensen, who damaged his knee during training. But then again, while Ashby might have been away from SailGP for quite a while, he showed once again why he's always been considered as one of the best wing trimmers in the world. Meanwhile, the French took second after a solid opening performance, with Lee McMillan returning to the team. And behind them, it was the Americans in third, as Taylor Canfield and crew delivered a performance that had eluded them for most of the last season. Race 2 started with more space on the course, thanks to the reduction in teams from 13 when the circus arrived in town to 10 now. The start saw the French swoop in from behind once again, and together with the Germans they got the best starts. But the French were on the inside at the first mark. They squeezed their way through to take the lead. From there they held the crucial position into the bottom gate and sailed off the front of the fleet. Behind them, the battle was between the British and the Swedish, in second and third, that were trading places throughout the race, with the Artemis team taking second by the end. Meanwhile, the Americans put in another good performance with a fourth. Once again, the French DS automobile team took the alternative approach to the start by diving in from behind. Once again, it worked. First off the line and first to the first mark. Holding this position to the first leeward gate gave them the advantage once again. And from there, despite being pushed by Artemis Racing, who were reeling them in, they picked the right side of the course each time and covered the Swedes. It looked like they were going to cruise to another win. But having to take last-minute avoiding action on the Australians, who were trailing on another leg of the course, they came off their foils and let the Swedes through. After that, it was game over. The Swedes took their first win and the French were second. with the USA taking the Canadians on the last leg to finish third. Back in the pack, the Brits were 7th and the Australians 9th. Once again, the French came swooping in from behind, but this time it didn't work quite as well, with the Italians with Phil Robertson at the helm taking the early advantage. But not for long. The first leeward gate and leg 3 was proving to be the hardest pass of the course, with major shuffles happening in seconds as the tightly packed fleet tried to thread its way through this crucial corner of the course. The result this time was that Artemis came from mid-fleet into the lead, and from there they shot out in front with no challenge to their position. Behind them, the Brazilians put up a good fight until they threw it away with a boundary penalty followed by a port and starboard penalty against the Australians on the last leg.
That's not enough, that's going to surely be a penalty there. I'm pretty sure Slingsby...
By the end of the day, the overall leaderboard showed why there'd been so much attention on Artemis Racing and the return of Nathan Outridge to SailGP. A 9th, a 2nd and 2 wins was enough to place them in the lead. After the race, Outridge commented on just how much tougher the competition was now compared to when he last sailed in the fleet. The leaderboard backed this up. At the end of day 1, the top 3 boats were all on 31 points. We thought the 2025 season was close, but in the opening day of the first event, there were perhaps signs that 2026 could be even tighter.
Yeah, it wasn't really expected. Like there was a bit of a hype about what we could do as a team, and a lot of internal pressure as well to try and come in and start well. And after race 1, it wasn't looking so good. So it was nice that we bounced back and had 3 really good races to finish the day off. And for me, it's just a huge pleasure sailing with the people we put together. Like sailing with Chris and Andy is so much fun. Brad, Julius and Julia, we've gelled together really nicely so far. And, it's only day 1 for us as a team, but, it was nice. It was a good one.
It's a super tough day for us. We got a good start. We're going down the first run in good shape, just below the Swiss. And then they just jibed and just kept ramping up the turn rate straight at us. We did everything we could to keep clear. So I'm not sure what else we really expected to do in that situation. And then obviously kind of bow went through our boat about a metre away from me. So I'm definitely pretty shaken up at the moment, pretty frustrated by the situation, but we'll just have to review it from here and see what the situation is going forward.
Yeah, pretty short day. It was going pretty well until then. Great start, and then, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Glenn's doing an unbelievable job when you think we can win races and we're in the pack battling, when you consider he hasn't sailed in a couple of years, and we did 1 day of training and he's straight into it. So he's doing an unbelievable job. But, he was asking, is it always like this crazy? And I said, this was actually more crazy than normal. Just coming into those bottom marks after a short reach and a pretty short run, the fleet hasn't had a chance to separate yet, and everyone seems to be hitting that mark at a very similar time. And just trying to get around without hitting boats is really tough. So I feel for some of these other teams who had collisions, because it's really not easy what we're doing out there.
Yeah, for sure. It was a big job for me today to have the good calls and being aware of all the boats around, because it was pretty busy at the gates. But you just have to be focused on the moment and see how it goes.
The breeze was up with 17 to 22 knots and a 1 metre sea state. This is where SailGP lights up. And with a promise of boat speeds hitting 30 knots upwind and over 40 knots downwind, this is also what teams meant when they said they were looking forward to coming face to face with the Freemantle Doctor. As expected, the start was a full-on foam up as the fleet scorched to the first mark. And while the Danish Rockwool team got there first, it was the Italians in second place that had the inside berth, allowing them to convert this into a lead once they completed the first jibe onto port. The high-speed scrap around the bottom gate was entertaining to watch too, as the first signs of the fleet order started to take shape. Red Bull Italy was leading Rockwool Denmark in second, and DST France in third. By the top of the first beat, Emirates Great Britain was starting to make their assault on the leaders as they moved up into third. and by the bottom of the downwind leg they were second. But Dylan Fletcher and his crew, that now includes his former 49er partner Stuart Bithell on wing trim, were not stopping there. Completely in phase with the shifts and tactics up the final beat, they overtook the Italians and took the lead and never handed it back. Behind them, the fight to the finish was intense in the last few metres to the line, with Italy, Australia and Denmark taking second, third and fourth. With 2 fleet races to go before the 3-boat final, there were just 5 points separating the top 5 boats. Race 6 saw another foot to the floor charge to the first mark, with boat speeds hitting 45 knots. Australia and France led the charge, but it was the French with Quentin Delapierre at the helm that got the inside berth at the mark and took the lead. By the bottom gate they'd maintained their lead, but were forced to take the right-hand turn around the left mark. Emirates GBR had gone to the opposite gate, and by the time the pair came back together, it was clear that the Brits had made big gains. With the French sailing a smooth and confident race, it looked like we already knew the result of this one. But misjudging the ley line into the final mark dropped the French off their foils and allowed the British to sail around the outside to take their second win of the day. And while the Australians pulled off a third, it still wasn't enough to get them into the top 3. With 6 points separating the top 4 teams, the focus for the final fleet race seemed clear. But in the pre-start of the final fleet race, things looked rather different. Inside the last minute of the pre-start, Artemis had a bad tack and filled the boat full of water, while the British copped a boundary penalty. Meanwhile, their competition, the Australians and the French, were in the thick of it, mixing with the front of the fleet. Off the line, North Star, the Canadian team, led by Giles Scott, pulled off the best start and took the lead by the first bottom gate. From here, they sailed a confident race to extend their distance on the French and Australians, who were lying in second and third. Nothing changed throughout the race at the front, with the nearest action being Emirates Great Britain, who pulled themselves up into fourth and with it into the final. But for Artemis Racing, the final race was a disaster, as they failed to recover from their pre-start error and finished last. So the scene was set for the final. DS Team France, Emirates Great Britain and the Bonds Flying Roos would take the stage for the final race of the day. With collision avoidance and dirty air being such a key factor in the fleet racing before, the 3-boat final promised to be very different. While the breeze was still up, the clutter-free racecourse offered a change in tactics for the teams. But if you looked at the stats of success in SailGP finals, the odds looked more one-sided. Until this point, Delapierre had won 3 of his 48 finals. Fletcher 7 out of 50, with Tom Slingsby sitting on top with a score of 13 out of 50. But that didn't stop him getting a boundary penalty in the pre-start. The Australians now had to start behind the other 2. It was tight between the British and the French, but Emirates GBR had the inside berth at the first mark. By the first jibe, the Australians had taken second. The British were first through the bottom gate, taking the left-hand turn, with the Australians choosing to follow. But the French had split and were now back into contention. They ended up locking horns with the Australians and copped a penalty too. But the winners from all this action were the Brits, who simply extended their lead. And from here, aside from a last-minute scrap for second, nothing changed when it came to who was going to win the opening event of 2026. The reigning champions, where Dylan Fletcher at the helm, had delivered yet another very impressive performance, both throughout the weekend and in the final.
Yeah, to be honest, right now I just feel like absolutely on cloud 9. And just an incredible day for it, buzzing to get to sail these boats in conditions like that. The team did such a good job. Parker, our flight controller, was amazing. Just would love to do more racing like that in the F50s, just the best conditions for it, absolutely amazing.
Honestly, best day ever. It was just insane. It doesn't get much better than that. Obviously here in Perth, it was Parker, our flight controller's hometown, and yeah, for us to go out there, the Doctor came in good with amazing breeze, bit of chop, made it tricky to sail the boats, but just, phenomenal racing.
It hurts losing to the British. That's 2 event wins in a row on Australian soil. That hurts. as I just said, we got the Ashes at least, but the Sailors will pick up our slack for the next Sydney event and try to get one back on them. But it does hurt, but at the end of the day, if I said to my wife on Thursday night when Goobs was injured, I said, if we get away with this with a top 6, I think we'll be happy. And here we are with a second place. We've got to be over the moon with that.
Yeah, exactly. So good to start the season normally, I would say. And I mean, with the new bench of athletes, new coaches, like, it's just really good for the confidence, and still working on our processes, but it's a good start, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. 4th's awesome result. It's always hard to go from like leading on day 1 to missing out on the podium on day 2. But yeah, super proud of the team. You know, what a result. You know, if you had have said 4 months ago we were going to be fighting for podiums and winning races straight away, I would have taken that. And yeah, it hurts a bit today to miss out, especially the way we did with just a terrible last start with a few unforced errors. But yeah, great weekend, and you know, the team did an awesome job.
The opening event in Fremantle had been talked up for weeks, and when it came to it, the notorious location delivered. The Doctor had indeed arrived. The fleet action was intense, and the racing everything that spectators and competitors had hoped for. After a string of frustrating light weather events towards the end of 2025, Fremantle had reminded everyone what this type of racing can and should look like when all the ingredients come together. Next stop is Auckland, New Zealand on the 14th and 15th of February. See you there.